Good afternoon, or good evening. It's very late. Thank you for coming. I know it's a late session for everybody. About 2 years ago, we approached Tableau, and we were asking for some reference customers who had done what we're going to talk about today, any customers who had deployed Tableau inside of Salesforce.com. And at the time, there really weren't any that had productionalized anything. So Citrix went ahead and did it anyway. And we'll talk today a little bit about how that was done, and Arun's going to show you a live demo as well. A little bit about Citrix. So Citrix builds mobile workspace solutions that give people the ability to access their apps and files and services on any device wherever they go. And you can see we're number 1 or number 2 in the 4 key markets in which we compete. Briefly about ourselves. So I'm an accountant by trade, and that got really, really interesting. So I moved over to business intelligence. And I partner with IT to work on BI strategy and vision. We drive standards and governance, and that includes the tools that we use like Tableau as well. Arun, you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Kevin. So I'm Arun Dabas. I'm part of the Citrix Worldwide Sales Operations team. Most of my experience over the past 10 years has been on the IT side, where I have worked on delivering various BI solutions. And as recent as January this year, I got an opportunity to start working on the business side thanks to my current manager. And in my current role, I'm essentially managing the sales manager dashboard, which is what we are going to showcase today. Part of that responsibility is creating awareness around what this dashboard does for the sales managers, getting their feedback, and finally making sure that they use this application on a day-to-day basis. And one of the key points I want to mention is when I moved from IT to business, for me, it has been truly enriching to really hear firsthand from our business users or our end customers how these applications that I have worked on even in past, or things like Sales Manager Dashboard, impact their day-to-day routine and help manage their teams well, and in the end, save time for them to focus more on the selling activities. Back to you, Kevin.
Okay. Thank you. So the objective was to help the sales people manage the business by giving them access to their sales metrics and KPIs in the environment that they're used to, which is Salesforce.com. So, and it's not to say that they weren't managing the business before or had access to metrics, but the prior process was pretty cumbersome. So it involved a lot of manual data dumps of raw order information in Excel, a lot of massaging and cleaning up the data so it was more consumable, and then sending it out to individuals so maybe they had their performance results but didn't really have a lot of visibility to the teams that reported up to them. Every geography was kind of doing it a little bit differently. It was only on a weekly basis, so it was relatively static, and the process was really too cumbersome to do it any more frequently than that. So you can see it really wasn't scalable, and they needed something that was going to meet their needs a lot better. So I know you all have all your data in one nice, easy place, right? So it's super easy to pull. But at Citrix, we have it in a lot of different places. We have Salesforce.com, where we manage our opportunity information and forecast information. We have bookings and order information coming from our ERP system, which is SAP. And then we manage our quota and commissionable sales from Calidus, which is a cloud provider. So there was some initial consideration before cooler heads prevailed that, if we want to bring sales metrics to salespeople and they live inside Salesforce.com, well, why don't we figure out a way of just, pushing all of that data into Salesforce? And when you think about that, it starts to get pretty complex. You're replicating data across different systems. You've got to keep them in sync and reconciled. You've got to rely on IT to administer all that. And then lastly, Salesforce.com, its core competency isn't really BI and visual analytics. So that wasn't really going to meet everyone's needs. On further thought, we had been making significant investments over the years in our BI infrastructure. So we were already taking this data and pulling into warehouses and cubes and data marts. And we had already been doing things like creating calculated measures and conforming the master data and hierarchies, so that a lot of this work had already been done. We had already made these investments. We also already were making investments in Tableau. So there were teams that were even building some of these reports out of Tableau already. So what we were trying to figure out is, well, let's just figure out a way to visualize these Tableau reports inside the Salesforce.com portal. And that proved to be much simpler, a lot more scalable. It gave the business the control for making changes as the business changed, and then obviously leveraged Tableau's specialty, which is around the rich data visualization and dashboarding. So one of the first steps was to meet with the sales organization and try and understand what their needs were. At the top of the list was we need to be able to access it inside Salesforce.com. We want it to be seamless, as if we're just interacting within that same application. One of the things they asked for, too, is they really didn't want to click around and click back and forth between pages. So when Arun goes through the demonstration with you, you'll see that there's a lot of information on a single page, and that was by design. Role-based security was also really important. So not only because there was some very sensitive information that we were providing them, but because if I'm a geo vice president, I want my dashboard is going to look different than an area vice president's dashboard. The senior vice president of sales has a set of core metrics that he presents to the executive team, and this was an opportunity for him to be able to cascade those down to his organization. And so he wanted to see those through his management chain. Standard metrics around sales performance, pipeline. The team also wanted to be able to not only see their performance, but to be able to see the performance of the people reporting to them and be able to rank them and actually see how they compare to each other. If they saw something that looked like they wanted to get more information or wanted to investigate more, they wanted to be able to drill into that and be able to get detailed transactional information, and Arun's going to show you that as well. And then lastly, most importantly, is in the last month or so of the quarter, the weekly refreshes were just not enough. So to be able to see the information updated every day was an important requirement. So I'm going to turn it over to Arun, who's going to walk through our architecture and security and do a demo. Thanks, Arun.
Thank you, Kevin. So you just heard about the requirements. You heard about a high-level overview of our operational systems, the source systems, and the need for why we needed BI to get us an application which is going to meet the requirements. The architecture diagram you see here has a lot of different components. I'll get into it, but I wanted to provide you a quick overview of how we arrived at this architecture. When we first started looking at different options to feed this dashboard, you always start with what you have already built in-house and look at those options. So first we looked at the BI cubes that we have built to feed our data for our sales teams, our other operations team, and we found out that it was not meeting our performance and scalability requirements. So second, we looked at sourcing the data for the dashboard directly from the data mart. It did meet our performance requirement. It still went to the extent where we even found them some scalability options. But what we realized was that we were still missing leveraging the powerful Tableau data engine. And we were not, we realized that we need to do something more to be able to get to that state. And so what ended up being as a final architecture, what you see here, it's a hybrid model where we are using Tableau extracts, which again will use the Tableau data engine, and then we have certain data sets which are feeding directly off of the data mart. So it ended up being a hybrid model of both, and that's what you see here. On the left side is how our BI warehouse is set up. You have your data warehouse, the data mart, the different processes which feed the data from the warehouse to the data mart. I'll focus more on the right side where you see our Tableau architecture. We have two worker servers. We have one gateway server up front, which acts as a load balancer, plus it routes user queries to either of the worker servers. And then this particular architecture from a Tableau side, it fulfilled three big requirements for us. It fulfilled the requirement of redundancy, performance, and scalability. So in terms of this application, it became kind of a critical application from our business user standpoint because our managers are looking at this dashboard on a day-to-day basis. So usually you would not find that any of the BI applications are critical, but we felt the need that we want to make sure we have managers across all geos who can be accessing the dashboard at any point of time. So we wanted to make sure that our servers never go down, and for that we have the two worker servers which get user queries routed to them. The second thing about performance, obviously you have two different machines. Your queries will go into each server, and this will make sure that for the end user, the return on how quickly they can get their data is faster. And then last one, scalability. So this current architecture helps us in future to just add more server nodes if we have to, and be able to get. So for this particular applications, we have about 350 to 400 users, but overall, people relying on our Tableau servers, that number goes, I think, around 700 or so with different teams because they are all leveraging this architecture. Sure. So I think that's another component of the big architecture. It's not directly related to Tableau, but that is Microsoft Data Services, which is giving a capability to our operations team to directly update certain mappings that we need to make sure our data gets reflected on the dashboard correctly. So it's a Microsoft tool where we give an interface to our users, and they can make certain updates, which then get reflected directly in your database tables. Because it's the operations team which is actually doing it themselves, rather than telling IT, okay, I need this table updated. You have to create scripts, run them through, and then update all the data set. So another key consideration for us was security. And Kevin already mentioned that a key requirement that came about was we need this dashboard embedded in Salesforce. So we were able to achieve that by leveraging the technology between Salesforce and Tableau, where we took the Tableau link and embedded it in an iframe in Salesforce. And that worked pretty seamlessly for us. What that does, though, is now users, they log into Salesforce using a set of credentials, and then to be able to access the data, because it's coming from our Tableau servers and from the data mart, we needed them to again log in or figure out a way to log in to those through their Active Directory credentials for the dashboard to show them the data. And that's what you see here, that we have two levels of authorization. The first one is Salesforce, acts as the gatekeeper to get you in. And then when you click on the dashboard tab, which I'm going to go through in the demo, the security is integrated with Active Directory, so your credentials get passed down. Now, one key thing that ended up happening is because the data resides on our server, and it's secure data in terms of, you're going to see that we have commissionable sales data, which is essentially what managers kind of get commissioned on and paid on. So we don't want this data to be hosted outside. So to be able to make sure that it's secure, we made sure that our managers can only, we had this limitation, but it ended up being something where they can only access the dashboard if they are on network or they are logged on through VPN. And this is where we looked at multiple options. We got some feedback from managers who definitely were a little bit not sure if they are on motion. They are traveling a lot, so they wanted to access this dashboard from anywhere. And that's where our own product, Citrix, then Desktop and Receiver, helped us out. And you will see that in the demo where it is pretty much device independent. They can log in through their receiver onto this dashboard from anywhere. And through the Zen Desktop, you have a session open, and you can access it and log into it from any device. The last point I have there is around data security. So when you are looking at this data where, as you will see, that obviously on the dashboard we are showing them an aggregated level, but they still want to go look at the data at the lowest level. So we needed to find a way to do row level security. And we were able to accomplish that by this hybrid model of combining the Tableau extracts and the data mart and having the security work with both. And again, there were performance considerations around that too, because you are having row level security and you would think that it would take longer for data to be returned, and when you see the dashboard, you will see why. So now on to the demo. Now one of the quick things I just wanted to show you that right now, I'm going to run the demo through my Zen desktop, because I just wanted to show you how easy it is for even our managers to be able to look at this. And even this PowerPoint presentation that we have on, I'm actually right now running it through our Citrix receiver application. So it is pretty easy for me without having to worry about which machine or what device to use. But I'll go to my demo, and I have my dedicated Zen desktop here. When I click on it, I get this view. Where essentially when a manager logs in, if you have used Salesforce, you would know that when you log into Salesforce, you get a view where you have your outer frame with all your menu options at the top. And within those options, we have added a tab for SMD. And that's what, when you click on that, this is the view a manager gets. In this case, with the resolution, it has actually moved around. So I'm just going to move it. Be patient with me. I'll have to move it a little left and right, but we'll get through it. So essentially, a manager would click on this tab. They will get this dashboard. And what they get to see is, at a high level, they get to see whose numbers they are looking at. When a manager logs in, they can see themselves, and they can see each one of their direct reports. And they are allowed to traverse their role hierarchy down to the rep levels. So the manager knows whose data is viewing. He can click on any of his direct reports, look at the dashboard as they would, and when he's actually having a conversation with them, which is something Kevin mentioned, we have not been able to have that one source of information where you both are looking at the same thing and then trying to make decisions on what metrics and other data set that you see on the dashboard. So they get to see that. You will see that we have certain filters on the dashboard. At the top, we have certain custom product hierarchies that our team manages. And on the left-hand side, we have a couple of more. I'll run through the example there. Then we have the different sections which are showing the different metrics and data that we want our managers to access. At the top, you have your commissionable sales data. Again, commissionable sales is basically order data translated into what a manager gets commissions on. And in this case, on the left-hand side here, you have your current commissionable sales number. The current commissionable sales number is your quarter-to-date numbers for the current quarter. Your prior quarter commissionable sales number are your relative quarter-date numbers for the previous quarter, which in this case, if you are in Q3, it would be Q2. So at the same point of time, how were you doing in the previous quarter? The prior year number is again the same quarter last year, what was your commissionable sales number at the same point of time? And then what you see here is we have certain goal information. So you have your commissionable sales, but our managers submit forecasts every week for each product lines, and they can manage and check their numbers from a commission standpoint or commissionable sales standpoint as to what has been coming in booked for that particular segment of product. The other goal is the quota, which is where you are looking at your quota which gets assigned in the beginning of the year and if you are able to meet it or not. Looking down, there are certain KPIs. Now these are the KPIs that Kevin mentioned that our executive team looks at on a weekly or even bi-weekly basis, and we wanted to make sure that through this dashboard we are able to give them access to these metrics on a day-to-day basis. The second section here is active pipeline. Active pipeline, for those of you aware of Salesforce, is is essentially data that comes from Salesforce, which tracks the pipeline information. And what we track in active pipeline is opportunities in the 3 stages. For those of you not familiar, these different stages are essentially related to the probability that an opportunity has to close. So if an opportunity is in the commit stage, it is most likely to close. If an opportunity is best case, it goes down to pipeline. So what a manager generally likes to see is most of their data in the commit stage, because then they know that the data is probably that their opportunities are going to close and convert it into orders. In addition to giving them data for the current quarter, we even give them opportunity information for the future quarters. So they are not only looking at what they have currently, but even looking at how their pipeline looks for the future. In addition to that, we have the created pipeline section. The created pipeline section is looking a year out. If my team is generating enough pipeline, and I can see that I know they're working on getting orders in, but are they generating enough pipeline that will put me in a spot where next year I can see that from reaching my goal standpoint, we are in good shape. So this is what that gives them. It gives them a count of opportunities. It gives them the opportunity breakdown by the different stages. And then this historical pipeline segment here essentially gives them a trending ability on how their pipeline has looked at the same point of time in those previous 5 quarters and how it compares to current quarter. So all these measures here from pipeline standpoint are more around how is the pipeline coming in, how is it looking for the future, and historically how have I trended with my pipeline data. Now a very valid business use case here is a manager gets in the morning, opens their sales manager dashboard. So in this case, the manager looks at his numbers. He says, my current forecast is 5.3 million. I'm looking at my current commissionable sales is 1.3. And when I look at my pipeline for the current quarter, I can see my total pipeline looks at 5.9, but if I hover over these different sections, I can see a tooltip which tells me right now I have about 1.6 million in commit stage, about 1.9 in best case. So if I add these up, if I'm able to convert all those opportunities, I'll be pretty close to my goal. So then for a manager to have this consolidated view where they can not only see what their current performance is, but even figure out how do I bridge that gap to reach that goal, and having something that does it for them in this same view is a big plus for them. In addition, we even wanted to give them, and this particular functionality came from the feedback from the different sales managers. What they said was on a day-to-day basis when I log in, we even want to see which are the recent orders that booked for us. So we give them a list of top 30 orders that booked for them within the last couple of days, and this is what you see here. There's a toggle functionality here which essentially even gives them a list of their top opportunities, which we call them top deals, as in these are the deals that we are working on and looking at trying to convert them into orders. And another key feature that we leveraged to make sure a manager, even though they know the dashboard is embedded in Salesforce, we wanted them to be able to just quickly review a big deal if they look at it. So we leveraged the functionality in Tableau where you can enter a link and pass in the parameters of the opportunity name. And when you click on that, it essentially opens up the opportunity in Salesforce, and a manager can see what the activity has been on that deal and then work with this team to make sure they can close it. At the bottom here, the section about historical performance is mostly giving them a historical view. Over the last 5 quarters, you had these goals. This is what your final commissionable sales number is. So that's the key thing for them, that at the top they are looking at the relative numbers. Here they get to see how did I finally end up in each of those 5 quarters, and gives them that view there. Now, Kevin did mention another key thing that was a requirement is I'm seeing as a sales manager or an employee, I'm seeing this view, I see my numbers, I'm seeing these aggregated things. I still want to be able to drill down to get first of all a team view where I can see everybody's numbers side by side, and secondly be able to drill down to the lowest level of information, which for orders is the order level information and for pipeline is the opportunity level information. So what they can do is within these different sections in the bars, we have created links for them. So what they, in this case, I'm going to click on the Q3 link, which says, click here for active pipeline details. And it opens up a different tab where the manager will get a view of this is the standard view that they saw on the last screen with their different quarters. But then if I click on my commit section, what I see is I see every single individual in my team. I see what are their opportunity numbers just for that stage. And again, I'll quickly show you. So if a manager says, I see this is my total number, but there is a particular product segment that we want more growth in. So I can filter down this data to say, I want to look at my desktop and apps product group. And once I filter that down, now I get 2 of my direct reportees are doing pretty well in that segment, and you can see their numbers, and you get this team view which they haven't had so far. Now they are like, okay, I know that Eddie is doing well, so I want to see which are the big deals that he has been working on. I click on it, and they get the detail level view down to the actual opportunity data level. And this is where and again, I think I mentioned it before, this data here from the detail standpoint is pulling off of the data mart. Whatever you see in the main dashboard with the whole aggregated version, all that is pulling out from the extracts. And that's where if Tableau aggregates that up in their engine and presents the data faster, so we went with best of both worlds and were able to put this together and have it meet the performance and scalability options. So they get this detailed view. They obviously can go back. I mean, I still have my tab to be able to go back to my dashboard. Now, I presented a scenario there for pipeline, but one of the other key things that we have done is that now if the similar thing that we saw on the other functionality with the filtering, a manager says that we have this new product group that we have released. It consists of certain specific product lines that I want to track on how the team is doing, how I am doing. So what they can do is, in this case, I'm going to say I want to click on Cloud Platform, see how the numbers look there. I'll get a goal, and I'll get my current commissionable sales number. I'll get a view of my pipeline, and it will filter down all the other data. So I'll get a clear view of where I stand for that particular product group, and I can drill down even further. And then again with Tableau, it's pretty easy to go back to your main screen, just click back on the filter, and we can get back to our main dashboard. So at a high level, I think from what we wanted to give our managers a consolidated view and be able to still make sure they can get down to that lowest level, we have been able to achieve it with this dashboard. We have those metrics that they never had access to, they do now. And in terms of really helping them and really understanding their need of how I can bridge the gap between these different data sources that I now have to pull from different places, we were able to achieve that with this dashboard. So now Kevin will talk about the future enhancements and some of the feedback we have received, and then we'll open it up for Q&A.
Can you leave that up for a second?
Yes.
Can you scroll down to the links you had there?
Oh, sure.
So it's probably worth mentioning now, too, that this is all test data. These links on the right, I know you didn't get to mention them, but these are links to other valuable reports to the same audience. And the reason why I love this is that these are links of Tableau reports that might be developed by completely different teams, right? And they're trying to address the same group of people that this team is, and so you start to see sort of the more collaborative nature of the Tableau platform, and allows us to share that information across pretty seamlessly to them. Again, it's all inside Salesforce. You had a question?
What do you use for embed your Tableau dashboard?
Can you repeat that, please?
What do you use to embed?
Oh, so we just got the link of our Tableau dashboard, the regular link that you put in a web browser, and in the iframe we can embed just the link, the HTTP link, and it seamlessly shows your dashboard. Yes, we use iframe, yes. No, so, and this is what I mentioned, that now that I'm logged on through my Zen desktop, I didn't even need to enter my login credentials. They already got passed over from my Active Directory credentials to Zendesk onto Tableau, onto the data mart, and that's why all the data can be accessed seamlessly because I'm using Zendesk. But in the case where a user tries to log in where they are not on network, they're not on network but they are using a different browser, they may have to enter their credentials once and then it gets saved till they change their password.
How do you keep the Salesforce certificate safe? Let's say the directory account assignments are all changed for the sales rep, right? Will it automatically reflect on your Tableau?
Yes, because the way it ends up working is as a user I got my Salesforce credentials, but when I'm looking at the data that has been displayed on the dashboard, it is coming from a BI system. The whole security component that is being managed for what data that they see on the dashboard is based on the security that we have set up in BI, and that's row level security. So it tells, basically we are telling Tableau that these are the records that this person is supposed to see and aggregate them up, and then they are able to see their aggregated and detail level information.
Can you switch it over to the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Thanks, Arun. Thank you. So we'll just close it out a little bit. So with any large initiative, you're kind of never done, right? So some of the things that they're working through for future releases and future just efforts, the first is around data integrity. So whenever you're taking something where people were previously able to manually mess with the data in Excel, and now you're kind of cutting them off and you're automating all that, you're going to uncover a lot of upstream process issues, things that affect the data downstream. So some of those are being worked on, as they're discovered. Additional metrics and KPIs are being added to the dashboard regularly as the business changes. One of the things that they've asked for too that the team is working on is not only the performance results of the team that reports to that manager, but that manager's peers, and creating some competitive ranking across the management team. And then lastly, they started with the executives, VPs, basically level, and working their way down on those dashboards, and eventually they want to scale, roll these out to the sales rep level and the product overlay teams as well. So the benefits have been significant. Probably at the top of the list is the fact that they can now look at some historical trending year-over-year comparisons that, unless they were basically keeping 52 plus weeks of these Excel workbooks and then trying to figure out how to put the data together, they really never had. So on an apples-to-apples comparison by sales day, they were able to compare period-over-period results. They're getting that information daily now, which proves very useful as you near the quarter-end period. They're having much more productive conversations in their meetings because people aren't coming with their own version of the data. They're all looking at the same report and the same dashboard. They're getting that full management view, so managers feel more empowered. They're seeing not just their results, but how their team's results actually roll up to their own. They're also finding some more collaboration, so if they find perhaps maybe some high performance in a certain region, and they can drill into that detail and get some insight and then understand maybe there's something that person's doing in that region that can be shared and leveraged across other geographies. And then one of the things that Arun mentioned to me that has been very popular is the Tableau functionality where, and I'm not sure if you actually showed that in the demo, but the ability to filter and create your filters based on how you want to look at the information and then save that so that the next time you open it up, you don't have to go through all those steps again. So that's been a very positive. But ultimately, the benefit is that they come in the morning, they look at their performance results real quick, and they're not spending half the day being data jockeys, which is not what you hired them to do. So they can go on to sell more product and be more productive. And that's it. And we'll stick around for questions. You'll probably answer most of them. Do we have any questions? Yes?
Why did you decide to go on Tableau, which seems like kind of untested?
So you want to answer it first?
Sure.
Okay.
So one of the things we ended up realizing is when you're trying to put all this information together, and in the way we wanted to present it, especially with the different visuals and trying to make sure our performance expectations are met. Tableau seemed to be the most powerful tool that was available which could do this. We have had BI tools in the past with SSRS, with other Microsoft BI stat tools or other tools, but nothing really gave us a view of data as we saw with Tableau, and we wanted to make sure that our managers see the data visualizations the way we see it, and are able to hopefully manage their teams better.
I think another factor is Tableau is designed as a self-service tool, so that the business is building the dashboards and modifying them, as opposed to relying on IT. If you wanted to change the dashboard up, you put it into the queue and hope it gets done, right? So we were already using Tableau even before this initiative, and we said, well, we'd love to have the flexibility of this self-service tool. We just want to realize the data inside the portal.
You may have told this earlier, but how long did it take you to do the full implementation to take from the inception to actually be able to see a first draft? And the second part of the question is, how was Salesforce.com involved in making this happen? The first part was, how long did it take from the idea to the first draft?
You might want to repeat the question. Question.
Well, the question is, how long did it take us from the inception all the way to when we could release a dashboard to our users? And I think it took phases. We first started with the phase where we need to make sure our data in the back end, in the BI systems, is in a way that can be consumed in Tableau. That took longer. You all know that we can build Tableau dashboards pretty easily in terms of just trying to put things together, but to make it perform and to actually put it in the way that you want it, and then being able to automate that process of having it done daily. So those are the things that took the longest. So I'm not going to take this away from Tableau, that it took us a long time to actually put a dashboard together, but everything around it in terms of the sources, in terms of trying to make it perform, and the performance and the security, those are the things that took longer. I would think we started this last year in about May, where we started working on the back-end data. The real Tableau part with the data mart started around October, and we released this in January at our sales summit to our sales managers. So it was a very fast-paced project. A lot of the people who were involved in the team, they were very motivated, so that helped us. Some of them are here. So it helped us get to that point, but I think it took us longer to then figure out how do we keep this going and automate everything. And the second question, which I forgot now.
Yeah, the second question was Salesforce involved in the implementation?
Yes, so no, Salesforce, our internal Salesforce team was involved because we needed their help in embedding the link in the iframe, but Salesforce as a company was not directly involved because the capabilities that we are looking at are more on the Tableau side, where I can link an opportunity from Tableau to Salesforce, or how I can just take a link and put it in an iframe. So we did not really need to leverage a lot of those core Salesforce connector and other capabilities to be able to get to this stage.
Any other questions?
One of the other approaches I've heard is a canvas approach. I'm not really familiar with that, but it's contrasted against the iframe approach. Is that available optional? Was that available to you at that time? Did you decide against it, or is that something relevant?
It wasn't available from what I know of Tableau history. Actually, our team heard about it today, and we were discussing it over lunch, that this is another option, and should we be looking at it? Or should we think that would it give us any more advantages from what we have now? So we'll definitely research it. We are always looking for opportunities from Tableau's side to make this tool better, or this application better. And if there are capabilities out there, we are certainly going to leverage them.
We were in close contact with Tableau during the implementation, so I think it wasn't quite ready in our time frame.
I'm curious if you run into any issues with regards to the fiscal year definition, because I thought it's not that great at handling odd calendars.
So we usually report based on the actual calendar year. I mean, we have a concept of sales days where we don't consider weekends as your sales days, and we work around them. We do have certain challenges switching periods quarter over quarter, but it's not the fiscal year challenge. It's more around certain capabilities in Tableau where when your system date switches over to the next quarter and Tableau is looking at your current date, your data in from the BI system is still not there yet. So it will just like show blank for a period of time, and then once the data gets up to date, you have your data on the dashboard.
And from a time dimension in general, we spend a lot of time on the time dimension in our cubes, which is sourcing these dashboards. So we were passing all of that through to the dashboard instead. That's it. I think we want to remind everyone we don't have that slide, but to just do the evaluation or survey at the end. Thank you.
Thank you.